Queen Mother Champion Chase. This is a race, Will, that, given it's a championship race, it's been like a roller coaster, I suppose, is probably the best way to put it, over the last few years, or especially since I've been following horse racing, because you've had some absolute worldies and godly names that have gone and won this race. You've had some horses that have made phenomenal comebacks, such as Sprinter Sacre and such. But I suppose more recently, it's been fraught with loads of really short price favourites suffering all sorts of different defeats. And Duvan did his hip one year, didn't he, when I think Special Tiara beat Fox Norton, and then you've had El Fabiolo last year that was falls on and gets beat. Defi de Soy had the year where it just all fell apart and he was short priced and couldn't get it done. It's I don't know why, but for some reason it's always there. But obviously good horses, I guess, in the National Hunt game, the objective probably is that people buy them for fences, like they're maybe looking at Gold Cup horses. Then when you get the real fast ones that's in there, it's testament to the depth, I guess is the best way to put it, that even when you get to a Champion Chase final and you get the prices that are put up by the bookies, that you don't get too many bad Champion Chase winners, because for all that people have been fortunate to win it in the past, you wouldn't begrudge any of them for actually being the standard of being a horse to win a Champion Chase. They're all grade one animals in their own right. So with that all said, getting that just out the way, we have to treat every race in isolation, right? We can't walk around with the cloud that all these fours on shots have been beat, so Jonbon will never win the race unless he's an odds against favourite, because surely this has to be one of the best opportunities for Jonbon to get a Cheltenham Festival win that he's ever going to see. Yeah. And it's at a time where he's on an upward curve. He's been threatening, I think, at times to put in a real big figure at Cheltenham and hasn't done it. He's slower a couple of years ago when Nico took it up down the back. I was saying to a few friends I stood by him, I was like, if he does this all the way to the line, this is going to be like a 180s effort. And then it did peter out a little bit. It was like a high 160s. But he's like such a good horse. And the ones that potentially have the class to beat him, that wouldn't be sort of like outliers to be etched in the trophy, given what's happened in the past as well, they can't do it to him this year. I just think it's like he's a good favourite. I don't know whether his price screams out to me that he's good value or not. I feel like he probably could be shorter, but then at the same time, if he was shorter, I'd say he was a terrible price. So I think he's probably sat about where he should be, especially in comparison to all the other favourites we're talking about. And that's not just because of the record in this race. But when you look at the ones in behind, Gaelic Warriors just look like a fraud this year. I know he's been really weak in the markets, but if you've got if you've got a Champion Chaser, but typically if you've got a grade one animal, you're out trying week in, week out. You're not saving him just for Cheltenham, as seemingly people are thinking he's done with Gaelic Warrior. And for all his Arkle was a good performance last year, and not to crab any of the horses that are in behind, it was a pants Arkle. They went to crawl. He did outsprint them, but he's still that horse that was favourite for a Stayers Hurdle last year. So I don't see him being a threat to Jonbon, even if he had been in good form this season. So I can eat my words when that one happens, I suppose. LA France, they want to go Ryanair. They're trying to put Factor File off, aren't they? They've got to go Ryanair. I wouldn't give him much chance in here, because as much as he goes out like the Clappers, going out like the Clappers in an actual championship race over 2 miles, it just doesn't do him any benefit. It just helps everyone else, I think. So I wouldn't give him a 5-1 chance that he is. And Nergamine does love Cheltenham. And the wetter it gets, the more I'd say that he could bridge the gap with Jonbon. He has put in 170's efforts, but I think it needs that. It needs to be soft or slower for a Nergamine to come into the equation. But if it is soft, a Nergamine at 7-1 would look an absolute knock in each way bet for all that he's 11. He's a 2-time Champion Chaser. It clearly wouldn't be a shock if he got himself involved. And Marine Nationale, I think, like Barry Connell keeps saying, is the best of the challenge, because he's looked good at Christmas, although I made excuses for him because of the way he was on the track. And then last time up behind Solness, I thought he should have won, and then he didn't win. And then I felt like I wanted to stop making excuses for him. His form does seem to be good on better ground, but he won a soft ground supreme, doesn't it? But then I get to that point and I think to myself, I'm trying to say that Marine Nationale is the biggest danger to Jonbon, and now I think 5-6 looks massive. So, Will, I need a little bit of help to sort of get some clarity on this one. Have I got right reason to be nervous of steaming into Jonbon, or do you think he warrants the price that he is, and do you think he actually will get the job done?
Yeah, I think he warrants the price he is, and that's twofold, really. It's what he's done, the credibility he's built up, rightly so, and also the opposition have got question marks about all of them, really, haven't they? I think there are 4 or 5 horses that on their day could give him a race, but they haven't shown that day for a while, or they've had issues and probably won't show that day again. It's or are ground dependent. in the shape of maybe Gallic Warrior and perhaps Energemine. So I think it's Jonbon's race to lose, really. I think what you could get here is a real strong tempo as well, which, if anything, I think should even produce a bigger performance from Jonbon. It's kind of something he's been crying out for in a lot of these graded races that he's been winning. It is something actually to take him into the race. On occasions, he's had to do his own donkey work. So, yeah, it's not a betting race for me, certainly not at the minute. Again, might be similar to some of those on day one, look into the without markets as we get closer to the day. If it is looking like it's going to be populated by a lot of those front runners, the likes of Solness, Ile Francais, perhaps, one or two other horses that have gone forward, perennially, then you could see the likes of Master Chewy and Liberty Hunter maybe sneaking a place or sneaking into the frame. They both ran well, obviously, at Newbury in the Game Spirit. They will both enjoy the tempo of that type of race. They could pick up a few pieces, but not going to beat Jonbon. And Marine Nationale he is getting better with each start, but there's just something with me that every time he comes under pressure, he just he kind of puts his head a bit at a funny angle in the air, as if he has to go right to the very last drop of petrol in the tank. I don't think the response is going to be there with Marine Nationale. I think he's had his issues in the past, and it just, I don't know. Against Solness last time out, like you said, he could have come through and won that race, I think, and he just didn't for one reason or another. So I'd be worried about him, about a proper end-to-end gallop in the Champion Chase and then having to see it through. He might well be there or thereabouts in the frame, but he could be the type of horse that the likes of Master Chewy and Evan Williams' horse, Liberty Hunter, just kind of pip for those places after he's put in a big effort.
Yeah. And I think it's one of those markets, it will be a crackerjack of a betting heat in the without market, because every runner that's priced in behind it all the way through the field, you can pick holes in. And as much as I want to be able to build a confidence boosting bits, there are very few holes to pick in Jonbon, other than the fact that he hasn't won at the Cheltenham Festival, which is, most of these horses haven't won at the Cheltenham Festival. So it's not exactly a positive for them either, is it? So I think he's good. Like I said, I'm still sat, I don't know where his price should sit, but even at Aintree last year when they stepped him up for the Mellon Chase, he got smashed in the end, didn't he? And he's one of these that if he did end up being like a twos on poke, especially considering other horses in the past have gone off at fours on there, with respect to all of them, he is probably entitled to be a bit shorter. But there is something that's stopping me wanting to get royally stuck in at the sort of price that he is. Whereas, like I say, Coppet de Board's of a similar type of price, whereas I'd much rather get involved in that one, which I don't even know if logical anymore. But it's a really good race. I definitely feel like the cloud of sort of my subconscious knowing that the Champion Chase, I've had bets with Duvan, Saturn, I've had bets with all of them when they've been short and they get turned over. Something underlines telling me you've been there before, don't put your finger in the plug socket again, I guess. And I want to get past that, because you do have to treat every race in its own right.